So I wanted to talk a little bit more about certain patterns of play that might arise for children with anxiety, especially children that have more of a generalized continual anxiety, or children that might have a very severe specific anxiety. Um, so a lot of times you might see kids repeat the same activities over and over and over, and it's easy to look at that and be like, oh, they're perseverating. They need to be removed from that activity. But there are times when they're really using that activity to process, especially if there's something traumatic that might remind them of, or something they're very worried about. Um, so, for example, I worked with a kiddo that had a lot of social anxieties and would continually want to have the same interaction because it helped kind of address that specific anxiety. And each time it was an interaction simply enough of just going and crawling through a tube and having someone surprise them at the end of it. Because they had a lot of anxiety about new people and people unexpectedly being there, if that makes sense. It was kind of a unique situation. So each time they went through that, I guess, ritual play activity, it kind of helped ease that anxiety a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, especially by turning that anxiety and fear into a game that was pleasurable so that they could process it. But that being said, there are other times when kids will perseverate on certain things. They get kind of stuck in that attempt to process through play. And it's our role as a therapist to be able to tell when a kid's able to process with us just being there as a support and when they need help getting unstuck. So, for example, say if they were repeating that activity and each time it didn't help, it just kind of increased the anxiety or they felt compelled to really do it over and over again, that's more of a perseveration. And just moving on to a different activity isn't what helps them most because that anxiety still sits there. A lot of times it's finding little ways to change it, to insert maybe a little bit of humor, to take away a little bit of pressure. Sometimes it's as much or as little as changing who's doing what role in the activity. Adding little small, like humorous responses or responses that normalize an emotion. Maybe they're perseverating because they are still afraid of dealing with whatever emotion that's attached to. You'll see my little picture examples at the side of the screen. There's a little kid that's playing doctor for a bear, and then there's a bear that is a doctor. That's kind of a random role change, but that was the best example I could find on Google Pictures. Um, but that kind of helps you think sometimes just adding a little bit of a component. Sometimes it doesn't even make full sense, but it gets the child unstuck so that they're able to keep moving from there. And there's a lot of different little ways. Sometimes it's as little as saying a specific thing a different way, or laughing, inserting laughter somewhere, inserting a joke, just and being able to pick up on things like that is something you learn with time and by knowing your client, especially knowing and figuring out maybe what is actually going on, what they're trying to process, and what they're trying to break through to. So, hope that helps a little bit.